This is New England Soccer Weekly with Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano, and Mike DeSilva on 790 The Score.
New England Soccer Weekly pushes on here on this hot, steamy, soupy July Friday, heading into the weekend. Now, a couple weeks ago, you guys saw how excited I was that we had Steve Cangelosi on the air.
I've never seen anything like it.
Watching Steve Cangelosi.
I've never seen anything like it, everyone, until today.
Yeah. Until today. Like, I all due respect to Steve, still very excited that we had him on. Can't wait to have him on again in the future.
This was next level.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can bring down my happiness for the rest of the week on this. And there's a lot of things that can make me miserable very easily. Just look at how much money I lost last couple of days.
We know.
Joining us on the program this week, he is the voice for MLS Season Pass. You can also catch him every Monday night at 9 o'clock on the USA Network.
Oh, 8 p.m.
Or no, that's right. It's 8 p.m. I'm used to,
We're still doing 3-hour Raws, Tom.
I know. I got a little excited.
Yeah, you're thinking Attitude Era.
It's Thursday. You said Friday, but we're good. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Well, we released the show on Friday.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
released the show.
Fourth wall, my bad. It's Friday.
Yes. The voice of Monday Night Raw on the USA Network, Kevin Patrick Egan. Welcome to Providence. I can't explain enough how excited I am today.
He's sitting cross-legged here.
Stop it. Fellas, how are you? Great to be here with you.
Doing great.
Great to have you here. Welcome to Providence. Have you ever been to Providence before?
Yes, of course. I love Providence.
Okay.
My sister lives up closer to Boston. I've been to Providence a lot. We do a lot of shows from Providence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's WWE is this is one of their big stops, and I was fortunate to speak with Cody Rhodes here. We had him in studio just before Mania this year, and he had an infamous story of an event that took place here at a Raw maybe a decade ago about a time where a match went completely wrong. It was a SmackDown taping that he did here, and they in the arena.
With Sheamus, right?
No, it was
with Drew.
It was oh my god, I forgot who was involved.
Mike made some news on this, Kevin.
Yeah,
Mike went WWE blog worthy.
Yeah,
with this story.
because we had Sheamus in here years ago, and the arena here in Providence used to be called the Dunkin' Donuts Center. It was called the Dunk, and Sheamus was like, the Dunk. Oh, you got to ask Cody about the Dunk. So I finally got a chance to ask Cody, and I guess there was just a match that went terribly wrong, and Vince had it out with him in backstage, and it was a great story. So
Didn't it involve snorting pre-workout?
he said he snorted pre-workout before, and they were going to shut it down, and it ended up going completely wrong. So good times.
Welcome to the show. See how in the weeds we get here? Let me ask you this: how did you? Because you were with Atlanta United before you hooked up with the WWE, doing a lot of backstage stuff, and now you're the play-by-play announcer with Monday Night Raw. How did you get hooked up in American broadcasting?
So I was in the broadcasting world in Ireland before moving to the US in 2009, and I had worked my way up from making the tea and coffee as the runner, which again, it gives you access to every single door in the building. You know, kids today, if you're listening, get the job making the tea and coffee. It's the greatest into television and radio, and you garner a greater appreciation for what everyone else does. But anyway, worked my way up a little bit, editor, researcher, radio reporter, doing a little bit of TV, but I was looking up the ladder thinking it's going to be too challenging. There's so many people on full-time contracts here, and to get a role, to get to where I want to go might take a long, long time. And not only that, I'd always wanted to move to the US for a while. My mother's from Chicago. Half my family is from the US. I have a US passport, so it made sense to go to Chicago for a year or so. And then, of course, I meet my wife a week later, and
wow.
Yeah, I get a job. Luckily, I got a job with the Big Ten Network as a graphics producer. And that led to me doing like a show for free. After a couple of years, I asked my boss, could I do a soccer show for free? So it's called the BTN Soccer Report. And that led to getting the job with the Chicago Fire. And then that led to, I got a host role and commentator role with beIN Sports down in Miami. So we had all like La Liga and Serie A at the time, Liga. And I was fortunate enough, so lucky, to be honest, that you're a big Ronaldo fan. I can see the UA jersey on you. And I got to host El Clasico 4 or 5 times from the Camp Nou and from Santiago Bernabeu, and covering the game that I love. So long story short, again, I got a role with CNN International covering the Champions League and doing some other stuff in Atlanta while also doing Atlanta United games. And I was shaving one day, getting ready to go on CNN to talk about the Champions League, and I get a phone call from a New York number, and it was a gentleman saying that they're headhunting for WWE and would I be interested in auditioning. Wow. And I thought it was Ashton Kutcher. I thought it was Punk'd, And I went down to Tampa. It was during COVID at the Thunderdome, and shadowed Michael Cole for the day. Did a mock commentary with Corey Graves, did some like walk and talks, did some interviews with Liv Morgan. It was fun, man. I came away from it just buzzing and rang my wife.
Sleeping like for you right now, because you got to be on fumes between Saturdays and Mondays, and like Tuesday must be a glorious day for you.
Well, it is until like next week. I've got a game on Wednesday, so I just said to my wife there, I'm like, I need to figure out, am I going to be able to make it home even for a few hours? Fly back to Atlanta, come back, spend a few hours with the kids, go back to the airport. And it's mad right now, but it's great. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm just lucky.
That's why you do all of what you did to get to this point right now. That's why you worked so hard.
Yeah, but it's funny when you think about it. You realize the amount of luck you can have, though, because there's a lot of people work hard, and I think it's realizing that when you get that little bit of luck or when you get a break, don't forget who those people are that give you the breaks along the way, and then try and motor forward in the most positive way possible. So for me, WWE has absolutely, without question, been the greatest challenge of my career so far, because it's not something that everybody knew back in school what Steve Austin was up to or what The Rock was doing. The Attitude Era, everybody going around doing DX and stuff. The crack, right? Oh, yeah. But I didn't follow it after that, and you'd have an idea what's going on, but then all of a sudden you get the job and you're totally immersed in it. And each and every week now, learning from Michael Cole, watching SmackDown, or I'm buddies with Corey Graves, and we sit at the bar, we'll have a drink, and we just talk about the industry all the time. And when you're that sponge in a dressing room with Edge and MVP and these veterans, you hopefully start to pick it all up.
This is the greatest day of my life, Nick. I just want to let you know that this is one of the greatest days of my life right now.
Tom is through the roof. Might
as well start talking about MLS. That's for the reason why he's here.
He did mention
he's got a big weekend ahead between the Revs and.
I did have a question though before we get into that. You mentioned the Thunderdome. Doing work in there, how different was that compared to kind of being live? We had Nino Torres on before from Gold TV, and he does a lot of in-studio work, and as opposed to being live there in person. What was the challenges doing a commentary or doing work in a studio as opposed to being there live in front of a crowd?
I think it must affect the performers way more than the broadcasters. I'll say this, with WWE, as the backstage reporter at the time, like my role has changed. I came in as the backstage reporter. So a lot of you had a very simple role. The biggest role was not to mess up. All right. So you might be put in intimidating situations. Like early on in my WWE career, I was with Bobby Lashley doing a lot of the backstage stuff, and MVP by his side with the Hurt Business. And you're going up and it's the most inopportune time as he's really mad and you've got to go up and ask him a question. He might grab you by the tie and it's the most intimidating fella you've ever seen in your life. And that sort of stuff is just make sure you play your role well. With the broadcasting side from a wrestling standpoint, you still see the ring. You're right there. You're so focused on what the performers are doing and their reactions that you kind of nearly drown out a lot of the atmosphere in a way. All right. Whereas with football, and when you're at a stadium, let's say I'm at Red Bull Arena at the weekend, calling it from a monitor versus calling it at the stadium is completely different. You get to see the full picture when you're in that broadcast booth. You get to see who's warming up. You get to see the manager who's really pissed off for some reason on the sideline. You see everything. Whereas you're calling it off a monitor for our beautiful game, it's just totally different. It's a lot harder, I think. But the atmosphere at the games, man, I'm telling you, we've had some serious atmospheres this year across MLS. And with WWE right now, no matter which arena we go to, whether it's O2 in London or whether it's Baltimore this past Monday, for whatever reason, the product is just on fire. It's just been absolutely great.
It's the hottest that it's been in a very ridiculous.
Long time. Yeah, well, we'll get into this weekend, but we all wanted to discuss, I know you saw it as well, that what happened in L.A.
You talk about El Clasico. Our version of El Clasico, El Trafico, brings in 80,000 people. And, the product on the field might not be perfect, but And Bruce talked about it too. Like, we packed out the Rose Bowl too. All right, Bruce, we got it. You packed out the Rose Bowl when you played against, Real Madrid. You have a real rivalry here with LAFC, LA Galaxy.
This is two MLS teams selling out the Rose Bowl.
Two MLS teams
in a regular season game. In a regular season game.
Yeah. That was rescheduled.
Yes, on July 4th. And I thought it would hurt the product. I thought July 4th, people are going to be out with their families, cooking their barbecues, maybe had too many beers. They're not going to go to the game anymore. How wrong was I? I was shocked.
Is this a new thing you think? Do you think that July 4th is going to be something MLS capitalizes on?
Hope so, but I'll say this: the whole thing about selling out crowds, I hope we'll see it with the Revs. I hope there'll be a new stadium at some point, and the Boston market and beyond, obviously Providence too, will just be totally and utterly captured by it. I'm in places like TQL Stadium in Cincinnati. You go to St. Louis, and what they're doing there, every single game is a sellout, and you see it more and more across Major League Soccer, and I don't know what injection the Northeast needs with NYCFC, with the Red Bulls, New England. You see it maybe with more of the older franchises. Chicago's the exact same way, where the crowds can be amazing, but a lot of the time, you want more bums in seats. And I don't know what the answer is right now, because your Revs, I think the crowds have been decent this year, right?
Crowds have been really good. I think the answer is ownership, especially when you bring up New York City FC and New York Red Bulls, right?
Well, the numbers, too, would be sellouts in all the arenas that Kevin just mentioned.
The Revs, for the most part this year, have done very well. I think in my opinion, to answer your total question, what is the Northeast missing? I just think you need really engaged owners. Like, you look at what's happening in Philadelphia, and you juxtapose that, 90 miles up the road to Harrison, New Jersey, and it's two different clubs right now, where the Philadelphia for years was chasing the New York Red Bulls and chasing the standards set by Ollie Curtis and the rest of the Red Bull management group there in Harrison. They blow that thing up. They lose Bradley Wright Phillips. They lose Sasha Kleshton. They lose Lloyd Sam. They lose Alex Mile, Dax McCarty. They can go through the names all day long.
They lost a bunch of them to Apple.
And they lost their momentum in the rest of the Eastern Conference. And I think it comes down to ownership. Same thing with New York City FC. You came into the league hot, but because it's taken you a long time to get a stadium, because you sort of just fell into the mix of the New York sports scene, nobody cares about you. And then the Revs, they needed to get Bruce to make people care about him.
And a new stadium will help.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, excited for this weekend though. Look, for the Revs to be able to go to Cincinnati, do what they did, and just continue to motor in the right direction. It's got me. I'm excited. I'm talking to Bruce today. I'm looking forward to chatting with him, because I had a really, really fascinating chat with Pablo Mastroeni about a week and a half ago before a game. And he said something in that chat that was so stupidly simple, but yet you could dive deeper into it. And it was about his approach to the players. And the way he said it to us was, he said, look, I've been around the game, and I'm invested in this game a lot more than the players. And we said, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, think about it. And he said it with a smile. I've played the game. I've played it, on the international scene. I've coached, I've done all my badges, all this stuff. I'm just thinking about it constantly. And he said, we did like a poll with the players at the end of the year, an anonymous poll, which asked them for feedback. And a lot of them said we changed tactics too much. And he thought about it. And he said, well, we really don't. Himself and the coaches were talking about it, saying we really don't change tactics all that often. But to some players, say, pushing the line of confrontation up 5 yards might, in their minds, be changing tactics. And it's just a lesson. And I'd love Bruce's thoughts on this, because I'm not saying overly simplify things, but sometimes of late, I find that coaches try to put their prints on the game far too much. When sometimes the simple approach of man motivation can prove the winning formula, while also being tactically savvy, obviously. But you think about a coach like Carlo Ancelotti and his approach to the game, and I know people that know Carlo quite well, and the way he's managed throughout his entire career, and it's finding that secret sauce with each and every human being. And it's something Bruce is so effective with. So I'm intrigued to chat with him later.
It's interesting you bring that up, because, and I don't mean to cut you off, Nick, but Bradley Wright Phillips brought it up, kind of the same thing you brought up about, coaches getting into too much styles and whatever. And he said before the Revs game against Cincinnati the other day was, the Revs really don't have a style of play. They have really good playmakers, but they really don't have a style of play. And I wonder if that plays into what you're saying from what you heard about from Pablo Mastroeni about, coaches being too involved. It doesn't seem like Bruce is too involved with his guys. Carlos, when Carlos is playing, unfortunately, you're not going to have Carlos this weekend.
Well, that was going to be my point.
Yeah, he plays in a free-ranging
role. They do
role.
have a game plan. It's to find him, but they lost that this week.
Right.
But also, I would say that the classic New England Revolution goal in the Bruce Arena, I'm thinking, is Dwan Jones or Brandon Boy to the byline, getting in behind, pulling it back. So there is recognizable patterns, I think, in how New England approach the game. And pace and consistency on the flanks and understanding when to make those runs is just a very consistent theme, I think, that you see from Bruce's teams.
So I want to ask you about the Red Bulls because I've watched a little bit of them over the last few days and I can't get a read on them. So 18 goals for, which is which is the at the bottom of the table for goals for. 20 goals against, which is defensively second best in the league. They have a bunch of games that are like 1 goal differential games. Why haven't they been able to figure it out yet?
Yeah, the games have opened up a little bit as of late. I thought they were actually very good against Columbus in their last loss last weekend. I thought they performed really well. They absolutely battered Atlanta United the week before. Things are moving in the right direction under Troy Lesesne. They've got a very recognizable way in terms of how they play. A lot of people don't like it. They're very much a 4-2-2-2, operating with Manuel and Barlow up front right now. So when you think, and this sounds harsh, but it's just the reality of it. You think Manuel and Barlow, you don't think MLS Cup champions. You know, they're good MLS players, but looking around the league right now at some of the top class players that teams have, I think Gustavo Bo would walk into that team. I think Carlos Hill would walk into that team. But yet they have a very recognizable way of playing. So they replace a manager and the next guy comes in and they understand the Red Bull philosophy and the way they play. Omar Fernandez has been very good of late. Luquinhas is always a threat. And they're all swimming in the same direction. That's the one thing you'd say about them. Like, I'd still back the Red Bulls to make the playoffs. And I don't have the number in front of me right now in terms of how many years it is. I think, 12 years consecutively of making the playoffs. It's been remarkable. So they needed to make a change. They made it. Troy Lesesne seems very comfortable within his own skin as a coach, and I think he's done a really good job since taking over. It started with victories against NYCFC and DC United, their 2 biggest rivals.
Well, I agree too. That Atlanta game, that 4-0 game, was the first one of the season where they actually finished opportunities. This is a team, to me, I think that when you go back and look at it, just squanders those last-minute opportunities that should go in. So this team, while on the tables at the bottom, might look a little bit different if they had that person, like you mentioned, to step up and kind of score. There really isn't that name right now that's kind of standing out offensively. Their defense, as mentioned, though, has been very solid.
Think about the goals that Giacomakis has scored for Atlanta, that Jesus Ferreira has scored for Dallas, that Hani Mukhtar somehow scores for Nashville. You need it. Every team needs that guy. And like Bobby Wood has in some ways, in terms of numbers alone, probably overachieved from what a lot of people expected going in this year. But you need someone to. It's like with your goalkeepers. Like for you guys, Petrovic is making saves you don't expect him to make. You know, so you're going above and beyond the XG on saving or scoring. So I think the Red Bulls just need an upgrade. It's a transfer window. I'm sure they will. They'll do some business if they are to make the playoffs. But at the back, really consistent with Nealis and Reyes are 2 of the most underrated centre backs in the league. Full-back positions, they're very strong with Harper and Tolkien in particular. Midfield, Cáceres Jr., like for me, he's a really good player. Amaya's tidy too. So all around their team, they've got the right personnel. But I just feel that 18 goals scored number that you mentioned stands out.
What do you make of this Revolution team? I feel like obviously it's been acknowledged that they're one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference just based on the production, but it almost feels like they're not being talked about as much. They're kind of doing things consistently and under the radar. But what is your overall take on what this Revolution team has been doing, especially this past month and a half?
Well, as a neutral and watching on from afar, it was very difficult to understand what's going on with the Revs, right? Because the season before last, horrendous season. Or was it? No.
It was last season, yeah.
Last season, excuse me, sorry. That's right, last season. And then this season they're doing what they're doing. But the season before last, absolutely exceptional. Supporters Shield winners, correct?
Yes.
So I'm breaking records. So it's just it's an interesting one because you've had the same coach the entire time. But for whatever reason, Bruce this year has found a tune. Carlos Hill is he's probably my favorite 10. I'm a Villa fan, so he's a former Villa player. I remember even at Aston Villa when he left the club, a lot of Villa fans were like, why? This guy has a magic touch. He's a little magician. You've got to get a tune out of him. I'm intrigued to see how Harks does, because I remember even calling games. I remember calling a game when he played for Wake Forest probably 10 years ago.
Wow.
and just what a solid player he was. Just so tidy, so efficient, and alongside Polster again, I think they could be really, really good.
Yeah, so when you saw that news yesterday, knowing his background, is that a piece that you think could work down the stretch for the Revolution?
Yeah, because Bruce clearly knows him. Like it's like Bruce has taken on his own son in a way. I think during the Revs press scrum, was it today or yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Bruce talked about knowing him as a newborn. Like, that's pretty special. How often do we see that within our game, that the coach is like, yeah, I'm going to bring in a 28-year-old, but I knew him 28 years ago when he was brought into the world,
When I coached his dad, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so rare. If I'm a Revs fan, though, I'm totally and utterly secure in where our team are. And now if you can add one or two pieces, there's a part of me still think you need a goal poacher.
Yeah.
Like that, just that fox in the box style player to even bring on later on in games.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Bobby Wood's kind of overachieved. We here in this area, we kind of expected him to not necessarily fill the void, but to kind of hold it over until they were able to find that Adam Buxa style goal poacher that was always in the right spot. And we've seen that Vrioni has shown flashes of it.
That's why I want to see if he can be that goal poacher that he's talking about. He hasn't been given the opportunity yet.
What's your take on Vrioni? Like, as you mentioned Bobby Wood, you haven't mentioned him. Is that somebody that you see could eventually fill that role, or are they completely missing on this guy?
I'm still waiting to see as well. I mean, all I've seen is a lack of consistency in a way. But when he's been good, he's been excellent. So it's just it's an intriguing one for me. I've seen games, but I haven't seen enough of Vrioni to say, all right, I can understand why Bruce is leaving him out, or
I don't
why
think anybody's up here have seen him like that.
That's why. That's the problem, is that we haven't seen him enough, and Kevin haven't seen him on the field with Carlos Heel. I need to see him on the field with Heel and with Bo, but it's more Heel in him. Until I see that, it's tough to determine how this player is going to react to just being on the field.
One signing in this transfer window. What position do you guys need?
Center mid.
I said outside mid.
Yeah, I think they still need a player on the wing. Losing Dylan Barrero, I think, has, although you mentioned they do like to play out on the flanks with Dewan and Brandon Bai, and, Bai's been banged up, but I still think you need that dynamic winger. Ima Boateng's been fine, but losing Dylan Barrero, to me, has been the biggest offensive change on this team, for sure.
You're right. My kvetch throughout the week has been, if you're making a depth signing, this is nothing against Ian Harkes, but make a depth signing in an area where I think you need more depth. I think you need more depth up top. And I think if you're going to bring in a center midfielder, you need a guy that's ready now to start with Matt Polster, because Latif Blessing has been inconsistent. Yes, this team's identity has changed since Dylan Barrero went down, but Ima's done a good enough job that it hasn't made that much of a difference. Latif has not been himself since going to Ghana.
But I think
then you have Noel Buck, who I don't think you can rely on him at 17 years old for his body to be able to maintain the real grueling schedule of an MLS season. If Matt Polster goes down, this team is screwed. And yes, Tommy Mack is starting to participate in training. He might be getting some MLS minutes. As much as I like Tommy, I can't rely on him either, because
we're
already more than halfway through the season, and he's starting from ground zero. So I really do think you need a ready now center midfielder who could start tomorrow if you need them to. But it doesn't seem like it's going to end up that way.
But the amount of names you've just listed, though, you've listed an awful lot of names there as depth in central midfield. Yeah. So maybe is it a case that one or two simply aren't working out yet, and you don't have the confidence that Harkes could step in now?
Yeah, that's been the
nobody's seen him.
Well,
outside of you.
This is what happens, is that people make decisions about a player that they've never even actually seen before. But back to Latif Blessing for a minute. Back to Latif Blessing, and he hasn't played up to the standard that I think Bruce and the coaching staff would have liked to seen coming from LA. But Kevin, I do think that they're not just going to bail on this player 2.5 months into the season just because they're not seeing it. You got to let it play out.
You shouldn't. The talent's regardless. There. I think obviously the family, situation with Latif has played a factor in it. We're all humans at the end of the day. These guys are professionals, but he has a lot going on in his personal life. I'm willing to give him the pass on that.
Absolutely.
But I agree with Kevin with the depth in the center midfield doesn't scare me as much as when you are in that attacking third, who's going to be the guy that can take somebody on one-on-one in the wing, create chances?
That has been a problem.
And especially now you want to talk about depth. What happens if Ema goes down? If Ema goes down, then you really don't have anybody out in the wing. You're going to have to move DeJuan Jones up.
And I think you can say this about a lot of rosters in MLS too, Kevin.
Right.
That's been my point throughout joining this podcast.
And what's your take on that? You said you mentioned there's good depth. We mentioned names in the midfield. You're high on Harks. Where do you think the Revolution could improve the most?
Well, the wide areas for sure. Dylan Barrero, I love him as a player. Even a guy like Andrew Gutman heading out to Colorado, you wonder, could that have been a signing for the Revs, right? Because he strikes me as that sort of a player for Bruce. And then you could push it. Because you've got such attack-minded fullbacks. You've got fullbacks that are wingers in many ways, right? So you could maybe push one further on if need be. And Gutman's very good at attacking. I just feel like that sort of player would have suited. Because I'm a big Gutman fan. I couldn't believe when Atlanta were trading him. Because he's adding so much more to his game offensively and defensively. He's very good. He's just a winner. He's that sort of player that I think Bruce would like working with. And further forward again, like I said, to win any championship and to be there or thereabouts at the end, away from home against quality opposition, I think you need more up front. Bobby Wood's been great. Brioni, inconsistent. I'd love to see more of him. But after that, I'm not looking at this team going, you've got a championship winner.
Right, I agree with that.
Outside of Carlos Hill.
So back to the game this weekend, you mentioned Hio. We talked a lot about DeJuan Jones. These are two players that the Revolution will not have against the Red Bulls, that I believe have a pretty full roster going into the Saturday night game. So what do you think? What is your approach to calling this game now, losing the player like Carlos Hio?
This is where I'm intrigued to talk to Bruce and see if he gives us any insight at all into where he's going with the lineup and his approach, because there is no replacement, correct? There's no replacement for Carlos.
Totally different team.
Yeah, do you go with two up top and do you put two forwards on Reyes and on Nealis and see what they're made of? Because those Red Bull fullbacks attack, and they at home, and they've got a massive stretch of home games coming up here. They have to turn this around with their consistency of making the playoffs and on the outside looking in right now. They have to put something together. And I've a feeling there will be transition moments, or there'll be moments for the Red Bulls to really be troubled at the back. And I'm just curious to know what sort of pressure he's going to put on Nealis and Reyes.
I got a random one for you before we let you go for the day. The UEFA released its latest league rankings for the countries. UEFA's England's 1, Italy's 2, Germany's 3, Spain's 4, Belgium's 5, Netherlands 6, France 7, Portugal 8, Turkey 9, Switzerland 10.
What?
Outside,
that's an interesting ranking. I don't know how they figured that out, but
outside of England,
When have these ever been accurate?
never.
Yeah.
Is this UEFA or FIFA?
UEFA.
This is UEFA.
Oh, UEFA. I'm sorry. Okay.
You could probably interchange both. Correct.
Yeah.
I was going to see where MLS would land there.
That was going to be the question. Outside of England, Germany, and Spain, those feel like they're the top giants. But I don't feel like Italy as a league, top to bottom, can beat MLS. I think as a league, the Dutch, the French, maybe Portugal would be a little bit of a.
I mean, I
top to bottom.
I would still place all those leagues ahead of.
Wait, the Serie A?
MLS.
I think the MLS is, you have Inter Milan, you have Milan, Juventus, and then it's everybody else.
Well, Napoli. I mean, they were the league winner by a long shot in the league.
I would.
Yeah. After how many years?
I'm a huge
You're trying
MLS
to match. You're comparing them. It's
Yeah,
Right,
league to league. Where do you think MLS can compete with some of the top European leagues right now?
Yeah. I think fully fit and raring to go, you put LAFC in certainly, like, I think they do reasonably well, right? I don't think they'd be relegated from the Premier League, put it that way, right? But I do disagree with you on your take on Serie A.
Yeah.
I think that Serie A, even this year, you go back through teams, 5, 6, Jose Mourinho Roma side, I think would win Major League Soccer.
Well, I guess when I say that, my approach is, Giacomo Vrioni's agent, like 3 months ago, talked about how far ahead MLS is other European teams and countries when it comes to facilities. So when I'm talking about better league overall, the on-field product is one aspect of it, but if you're a young player,
big aspect of it.
right. But if you're a young player, right, and quality of life is something that matters to you, do you want to play in Belgium or do you want to play in Miami? We
I
ask
think
the
that
same.
was proven when Tejan Buchanan took some
think-
big money to
yeah,
go
I think
play.
the
Yeah, but
answer-
Tejan also lives in North America. If you're a kid in Portugal, legal, right?
And he got paid in Belgium.
But you could also get paid here in America. Do you think MLS has the business structure that actually now rivals what we see in Europe? On the field is one thing, but add in the business structure of it as well.
100%. Look at a guy like Luis Araujo, albeit he didn't work out in Atlanta, right? Comes from a Ligue 1 winning team to come play in Atlanta, and I remember hearing all about just the excitement he saw in the stadium, the facilities. The buzz around MLS is growing rapidly. I think Apple TV is helping that because these games are now available. Messi comes in, helps that. When you think about, I saw this the other day, and then I started diving into it. I was thinking about Insigne coming over, and he's European champion in Italy right now, as is Chiellini. Lionel Messi's coming in as a reigning World Cup champion. These are reigning champions. When Gareth Bale won MLS Cup, he's a reigning Champions League winner. Luis Araujo, when he joined, was a reigning Ligue 1 champion. Like, there's a couple others as well in that reigning champions that have come to MLS recently. That's noticed everywhere. And I agree with you. Look, if you want to just talk about personnel, tactics, teams, MLS is still not there, right? But in terms of facilities, TQL Stadium I mentioned, going to St. Louis, around the grounds, LAFC, like it's remarkable. Austin, the atmospheres in these places, the facilities. You mentioned Napoli, right? Napoli win Serie A, but you look at the stadium, you look at the facilities there in Naples, horrendous compared to what we're seeing.
United as well. There's been complaints about their facilities.
All massively in need of upgrades. The tide has turned, and I think it's very much in Major League's favor over the next while. And I think we need to be really ambitious as a league as well, and open up the roster rules a bit more, and make sure, you mentioned owners earlier, make sure the owners are well and truly on board with the next stage of development and growth for MLS.
Well, and just to put a button on that too, you look at the names in the All-Star game right now. Yeah. You rattled off some names. You look at all these teams that have these star quality players that are known worldwide. That's another feather in the cap for MLS.
Sure. Yeah, Kevin, I know we're taking a bunch of time right now, but we're mentioning, if they are to loosen up the roster rules, right? You're starting to get some of the heavy hitters earlier on in their prime come to play MLS. How much do you think the Club World Cup factors into, because there's still the allure of the Champions League and UEFA, right? That's still like, as far as a club level, the prime jewel. That's the trophy that every player dreams of holding one day. How much do you think the Club World Cup now factors into players willing to play in the United States in their prime, not even thinking about the Champions League?
I don't know if it matters all that much.
Yeah,
I'm being honest. Like the Club World Cup, at least for me, it's such a sharp, quick tournament that's you're in and you're out. And it maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally off base on this. I just don't think that has the biggest pull for players. To say, I want to go play in Seattle because they're going to play in the Club World Cup this year. Maybe it does. I think at the end of the day, players want exposure. They want quality fields. They want good teammates, good coaches, good atmospheres. The overall package, and this is going back to the original question, I think, is the overall package that MLS is offering right now is really, really impressive versus the olden days. And the new stadiums we see are very important to the overall picture. When you watch a game on Apple TV now, the cameras are next level. The picture quality we're seeing. I called a game earlier on this season, and I got onto the director after the game, and I said, like, the angles we saw, and this was the Thiago Almada free kick against Portland, the one from way downtown, right, where he had no right to shoot from there. But not only did he shoot, he put it up, as my friend Ray Hudson would say, up where the spiders live, and that top up. And the angles and the quality of the picture that we saw, I'm like, this is next level. This is another level of picture that we're seeing on these goals. So we're doing an awful lot of right things. Like we're still in the teething phase with Apple and MLS. We're going through some teething problems, but as we're naturally going to do in year one of a 10-year agreement, we're only going to keep getting better as a product, and the league is going to keep improving with that, and with that, hopefully, the global eyeballs. I know of stories this year, like Obina Wobodo, for example, his mother talking about being able to watch his son play from over in Nigeria because it's global. Like, and everybody can watch on their phones. All these simple things make a massive difference to the global appeal of Major League Soccer. And with that, the scouting then will improve. With that, the scouting will improve in the opposite direction as well, because when fans turn in to watch Leo Messi and they see Ben Kamansky playing for Inter Miami, they're going to say, well, look at this quality young player. Look at Noel Buck ripping the ball off Leo Messi's feet. Like, how talented is this Noel Buck kid? With more eyeballs comes more responsibility for all of us to improve the game. And with everything you guys are doing and all across the country and all across Canada as well, it's only going to keep improving. I really do believe that.
The housing all the games too, I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
It's such a game changer. And especially when you bring over Messi, I'd like to see the rewatch numbers on those worldwide. It's going to be amazing.
As somebody that doesn't mind throwing a little do, re, mi, fa, sol, li, do.
Oh, you don't say.
On some of these games, it's been very nice at the staggered start time, and you'd be able to watch everything.
You're loving these midweek games, huh?
I love these midweek games.
Sports books are loving them too, I think. Yeah.
All right, that does it for our time with Kevin Patrick Egan for today. Again, make sure you're watching the Revs and the New York Red Bulls, 7:30 this Saturday night from Red Bull Arena. A heel-less New England Revolution.
I know we're going to talk. That's ridiculous.
We'll get to it.
Ridiculous.
Is that a wrestling comment? The way you said it, heelless. I love the way.
I like that. It could be.
Why did I
That's full of baby face.
Depending on the show, we have different heels every week on the show.
This is awesome. Yeah. Kevin Patrick Egan, voice for MLS Season Pass, and the lead play-by-play announcer for the longest
subscribe, man. You won't regret it.
Episodic television show anywhere in the world, Monday Night Raw. Tell Kevin that either Mike or I will take a job tomorrow.
Yeah.
James, what a pleasure. Looking forward to calling. It's my first game with Taylor Twellman, so I was jumping in alongside Taylor for this one off, and I'm excited to call a game with the Revs legend. So, excited for it. Take care, though. Pleasure chatting with you, fellas.
All right, back
Kevin,
and forth for this.
appreciate it.
Well, that was a lot of fun. Kevin Patrick Egan joining us on the program this week.
We had a quick break.
The
These two are geeking, but
yes. Marking out is the proper terminology.
Yes, I don't watch wrestling. I'm the one. If you haven't figured it out, but it was
21-1.
It was fascinating. I just don't know what that means. It was fascinating to listen to all of it. I was trying to follow along.
It's okay.
But it was cool.
All right, so big one this weekend. You don't have Carlos; he's out.
Ridiculous.
It helps you.
Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I mean, it's not a yellow card.
It wasn't a card on the field. I don't understand. The league has the opportunity to rescind that card, Mike. I don't know how that doesn't happen earlier this week. That's a wild one for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes down to the league making the decisions that they make, and I don't know. I'm just.
Was that a card?
I don't think it was a card, no. But again, we've seen this time and time again. I don't understand how. I understand like the VAR is strictly for direct red cards.
Oh, I'm not even like on the field. Whatever, those calls happen. The league has that in place that they can go back and determine it, and it's happened before. That is a clear case to me. It really is.
A lot of times the league doesn't want to go against the officiating. You know, it's like you've seen it all the time. They're gonna put the trust in their officials, and if they feel like the officials felt they made the right call, they're not going to want to go against them because then they feel like they're being undermined.
I think Taylor even said it on the broadcast.
Yeah,
like they'll look at that. I don't know. That's wild to have him sit this week because of that.
I think I was talking to somebody that said that they think they're gonna, even if they were to go back and look at it, there's another instance in which Carlos probably should have been carded for something that he wasn't carded for. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean,
it could have been a build-up.
I didn't realize he had that many yellow cards.
And you know what? It could have been a build-up.
About the other one, but yeah, that did happen.
Well, Carlos, ran his mouth a little bit at the beginning of the season too. He was playing a little chippy when they started a little bit slow.
It's very rare to see him pick up yellow card accumulation. It's very rare.
No, it is rare.
One of the top players in the league, you're going to do that?
I mean, we saw him beginning of the season how he was. He was very mouthy. He was very lazy with his tackles.
No respect.
Well, you wonder what this roster looks like this weekend without Heel. Now, Noel Buck is not on the injury report, but is he ready to start right now? Do you thrust Ian Harkes into a position here? Like, I'm serious when I say, like, I'm not with Latif right now. Like, I really think he's in a bad spot.
I know you're not, but my point earlier is that the coaching staff, you're not just going to throw the player away 2 months into the season. But it's not working, but it's not working.
Yeah, but if it's not, but if you're saying if it's not. Okay, but do you have to let it play out for the course of 90 minutes, or do you let him maybe do like 15 to get himself back on around 30?
That's a Coach Arena decision.
I mean, you're willing to sit on Giacomo Vrioni forever. Meanwhile, Latif, I think, is hurting you on the field, and you're just going to keep on trotting him out there every
that's
week.
something we can talk about.
They haven't really had many different options either.
That's also true. You know, that's also. But at the end of the day, I think you see the juxtaposition there. So it's detrimental, and it's getting to a point where I don't think if they're going to continue to add here with the 2 spots that you really have left to add, that you're probably not going to add in the midfield. So this midfield's going to be tested for the rest of the year, and I think it's going to come back to bite them that they didn't go out there and get a better player. Now, again, you can't get a designated player because all 3 of your designated spots are filled up. But don't tell me you shouldn't be using this TAM spot for a center midfielder. Well, the big money spot that's open right now is that TAM spot, which is what Josie was holding up, right? So that's about $1.6 million you could throw at somebody. I can't tell you how brutally mocked I was by somebody inside the building.
Oh, boy.
Up at 1 PP for suggesting.
Any hints?
No, I don't want to give this person.
Yeah, no, don't give him away.
But I was brutally mocked by some people in the building down there.
Was it somebody that might have been making fun of like your burgers and like steaks or something?
No, that's literally everybody on the internet
Yeah,
right now.
that burger was a rough look, bro.
That was a great burger.
I thought the burger was fine.
That's not.
The mashed potatoes with the burger is a whole different conversation.
The idea that the Revs shouldn't be using this TAM spot on a center midfielder who has experience in MLS, who might cost a little bit more money, listen, then that's a style thing. I think if you really want to win, if you could just plug that hole to prevent teams from countering on you, which is what's been some of your bigger weaknesses this year, is, you know, you just have guys getting caught out of position because of how high Brandon Dewan play.
But I think
don't you need that stopgap?
But I think that they think that that's Latif Blessing. That's why they don't have to address it.
Yeah, maybe it's Harks. I think we got to give this guy a chance. I mean, it's clear that we know that Bruce has a track record of bringing in his guys.
This is definitely a Bruce family guy.
We know this is a
this
Bruce
is the
guy.
epitome of that.
Yes.
But listen, we haven't seen the guy play yet. You know, he's a little bit on the older side. But at the same time, you have to give him a chance. You don't know. He might be able to fill that role. You're not asking him to come in here and be a game changer and to, go out there and score goals. You're asking him to do exactly what you just said. Be that first line of defense, that first, that's CDM position, that number 6 position right there alongside Matt Polster to kind of give you a little bit more freedom to allow Brandon By and for DeJuan Jones to be up on the flanks.
That's a good point. So you and all these people out there are making a decision on a guy that you haven't seen yet. What you just asked for, this might be that
his
player.
role is important, obviously, because we've seen that position not work out for players like Latif Blessing so far. Tommy Mack's done an okay job over the last couple years.
Yeah, but who knows? Coming off an injury,
Noel
who
Buck,
knows?
we think, has the most potential in that spot, but who knows if his availability and how long he's going to be on the team.
The Buck thing's interesting. So
Buck is very interesting.
Is he hurt?
From what I know, it's like
because he played all those minutes, and I get he's a young player to maybe taper that off a little bit, but we haven't seen him at all.
I think they're being very careful with him. I think because that's a big transfer value right there. I think
it is a big transfer value.
Yep,
it is. Point. His name's been thrown around enough for them to be careful with him. They haven't really needed him. Needed him. You might get to that point.
Maybe this week.
They might need him this week. Do you see anybody else get called up this week? Have they mentioned that yet? Are you going to see what's Damian Rivera doing? What's Rennick's doing?
None of these names I want to see.
I not necessarily want to see them either. But if you're going to drop Bobby Wood back to play almost sitting behind that striker where the Carlos Hill would normally be, are you going to put a Rennick's up top?
Well, here's
and you called for Bo. Bo scored 2 goals. So is he back in?
Well, one was an own goal on created. You got to take the shots.
Semantics, yes, but okay.
But if you want to get frisky this weekend, I doubt it's going to happen. Why not throw out a 4-3-3 and put Giacomo as your holding number 9? Put Gustavo out on.
I don't see them abandoning
this 2-striker formation.
I don't see them abandoning how they're set up in the back.
So what about making Gustavo your number 10 this week?
I don't see. I don't have a problem.
Well, they've done that in the past. It's been, but I mean, for 1 week. This game.
He's not giving you 90 minutes at the number 10.
But this game isn't going to make or break your season. Obviously.
But this feels very 1-1 Bruce, old school Bruce Arena.
The last time that Heel didn't play for whatever reason, I believe injury, whatever. This is what they did with Bo.
It's going to be ugly football, though. It's going to be gross.
But do you play with one striker then? You just go, throw Bobby Wood as your lone striker.
I think
if you're calling for old school Bruce ball, then that's what you're going to.
You're going to see a 3-5-2 here. Where you kind of essentially basically 5 in the back. You're going to have DeJuan and whoever else on the right hand side.
Dewan's not there.
I'm sorry, Dewan is not there. Well,
Spalding.
You're gonna see them playing a little bit higher, and I'm assuming you're gonna see a 3 center back. He knows his guy is out. He knows they're gonna be lacking offensive power. He's gonna want to sit back a little bit more. We've seen this from Bruce time and time again. It's gross. It's ugly. It's not going to be
just get the point.
They're going to try to get the point, get the hell.
Yeah, and I talked about this earlier with the Red Bulls. I mean, if you look at their record, they look on paper like they're not good. They really don't have that star name that you're nervous about. But this is a team that's played a lot of 1-goal games, and the game against Atlanta a few weeks ago, they scored 4 goals because of, I think, 3 of the 4, maybe all of them were all defensive mistakes by Atlanta. So this is going to be an interesting test for the players on the field for New England.
And Revs are getting into that, target on their back territory. They've been hot
for sure.
Each team knows they're going to have to bring their A game.
7 points, 7 games in a row with points.
You should be very. If you're a Revs fan, you should be very happy and grateful for Joseph Martinez, who has kept Columbus sitting in 4th place coming into this weekend. Because if they win on Monday, you're in a virtual tie with the crew there.
And the Red Bulls just played Columbus very well. It was a 2-1 loss, but they missed a PK, they meaning the Red Bulls. So that could have been a tie, and there were opportunities for the Red Bulls to even take the lead there. Yeah, Columbus is a good team.
This league, it's wide open. I mean, the Eastern Conference, you have teams that definitely, we know Toronto's been pretty terrible. We know Miami's been pretty terrible, but
Toronto has been terrible with a really good roster.
And Miami can still make the playoffs.
Yes, it's true.
Exactly.
Miami's still alive for a playoff run. By the way, Toronto without
that Martinez goal, you were right, was so sick.
That was probably that might be one of the goals of the year. He brought up the Almada goal.
Definitely, the Almada for sure.
The Almada goal from Sunday was really good versus Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It bounces back off the wall from Philly, and then he just sink past Joe Bendix. So really good stuff. Really good MLS action this weekend.
Fun to watch.
It's been a lot of fun.
Can we just take a second and appreciate the fact,
that first Galaxy goal was sick too. The name's escaping me. Who had the turnaround? That was great.
The games, the quality of the goals we're seeing, the quality of the matches, the parity in the league. I don't really feel like any team has been completely out of it, right?
Right.
And it's just been really fun to watch. And you got to credit MLS Season Pass and what Apple TV is doing and the coverage you're getting, like Kevin said, mentioning the quality of the cameras and just it's been really, really fun.
That is something that even just watching the game you do take for granted, but the way that it's shot, it's
wild.
Awesome. It's just great.
It's awesome.
We do have 14 more weeks that starts this weekend when the New England Revolution.
Season's flying by, boys.
Honestly, this might be the quickest season
we're
we've ever done.
already halfway through.
We've got so much to talk about. It's been so much going on.
We're on the back 9, Mike.
Good God.
By the way,
when I'm hammered.
Your people are clamoring for the World Cup.
Which people? Portuguese?
The Portuguese.
When do they want it? 2030, right?
2030.
Yeah,
it's coming down to Morocco, Portugal,
and Spain, right?
Spain and Ukraine.
Portugal, Spain is going in for a duel. Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know how Ukraine works if Russia. Never mind.
We're going.
If it's in Portugal,
yeah,
100%.
All right, cool.
Yeah, of course. We'll go stay at my.
We'll go back to. So we'll be back to back World Cups then.
Yeah, be lit.
We stay at the Azores.
I'll do a little jump over to Italy on an off day.
No problem.
We'll be fine.
We'll go backpack through Europe.
All right, there we go. Again, thank you very much to the voice of Monday Night Raw.
This is a very positive show this week, boys. I like it.
Very rare.
Tom's in a great mood.
Fantastic.
We got to have these. Steve Cangelosi and Kevin Egan every other week now.
Taylor didn't bring me this joy.
No, Taylor. You argued with
love
Taylor. You argued with Taylor for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Kevin could say anything. You would have geeked out. It was great.
Oh, by the way,
Ian
Harkes, his goal song, allegedly, "Real American" by Rick Derringer.
Hulk Hogan. Shout out to the.
I can't hate him. I can't hate.
How do you not?
That's incredible.
Another connect.
He's got to Hulk out every time.
So we have to get. If Ian Harkes really is a wrestling fan, then we need to bring him on here. So Adam, find that out, please.
There you go.
Thank you. All right, you do your thing,
Bruce.
Great. Thank you.